Hi, this video is about boundaries. So boundaries are one of those really important things to establish and know what they are in order to have functioning, healthy relationships with other people. Three different areas of boundaries are physical boundaries, so how close people can stand next to you or be in your personal space, and it also includes your personal belongings. So whether people can use them, whether they, move them around, anything that you own is part of personal boundaries. Second area is sexual boundaries. So sexual boundaries are how comfortable you are as far as intimacy and what you give consent to and what you don't give consent to, and being clear with other people of where those boundaries are. The third area is, which I spend most of the time with clients because you need it in order to establish boundaries in both those physical and sexual areas. That third area are internal boundary systems or psychological boundaries. Internal boundaries are about how we hear people and how we talk to people. So it's really important in relationships so that everyone's clear and on the same page of what to expect and where lines are. Internal boundary systems, well, with any boundaries, there's usually two extremes. One, porous boundaries, there's no boundary, right? Things are coming in and things are coming out, and there's no moderation or containment of either of them. The other extreme would be walls. So nothing is coming in, nothing is coming out. It's just very walled, and people are sort of left wondering, like, what's going on? So either too much is coming in and out or nothing's coming in or out at all. Those are the extremes that I have people start noticing of where do they fall. I split them up a little bit further where it's how we talk to people and how we listen to people. So in the area of how we talk to people or how we contain ourselves when we explain what's going on or what our needs are or what boundary needs to be set, if people are porous, they're word vomiting all over people, or they're pointing fingers and blaming. Oftentimes they're screaming and they're really upset and everything is just coming out. So I like to use that idea of like they're vomiting on other people because for the other person it's really unpleasant and it doesn't feel good. So if someone's porous in the way they talk, they're often, they're not holding back, right? And it's very hurtful oftentimes, so they're being offensive. The other extreme is people can be walled with what they share, right? You think of the silent person who they're not saying what's going on, they're not sharing any information, which for the other person they're sort of left like going like, okay, so what's happening here? They can often tell that the person is upset, whether that's because they're slamming cupboards and you can physically feel that they're upset, but they're not saying anything. And when you ask them, they're like, nothing, I'm fine. And you're like, you're not fine because I can tell you're really upset. But they're not sharing, right? They're using walls rather than speaking up for what's going on. So that's the extremes with talking. The extremes with listening are, again, porous. If you're porous with how you hear things, you take it all in. You are like a sponge. You're sucking up other people's energy, their emotions. You're taking on their blame. Sometimes you're even reacting to that blame, right? So oftentimes people get really defensive if they have poor boundaries as far as their listening. So, someone might say, hey, you did this wrong. And if I've got porous boundaries, you're like, oh, I'm the worst person in the world. Or I might get upset and be like, I didn't do anything wrong, and, get really defensive. Porous boundaries with how I hear. The other extreme would be, I don't listen at all, right? Someone tells me something and I'm like, whatever, and I ignore them and I just continue what I'm doing. So two extremes: porous, everything's coming in, everything's going out. Walled, nothing's coming in, nothing's getting out. Both of those cause major relationship problems because people are left to their own ideas and their assumptions and the stories that they might tell themselves, so their own narrative. Functioning in both of those areas are when we talk to people, we're sharing what's coming up for us, and we're doing it in a really diplomatic and calm and respectful way, right? So if someone says I'm doing something, when I talk to them, I'm telling them, hey, when you do this, I feel this way, right? I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying you're doing this and blaming. I'm simply sharing my reality and what I'm noticing for myself coming up, and I'm asking questions, right? I'm getting more information, and we're having a conversation where we're both feeling listened to and we're both respecting the other person. As far as information coming in or how we hear people, a functioning person is able to filter information that they're hearing. So it's being open and listening to them, right? Like, we're not thinking of the next response, but we're hearing what they're saying, and then we determine whether it's true or not for us. So if someone's telling me I did something, I can look at it and be like, I did do that, right? And then I can decide what I'm going to do. I can own it. I can take responsibility for any harm I've done, or just simply listen and be like, yeah, that's true. I do that. Or if it's not true, I'm just letting it go over my back, right? If someone's really angry and they're upset and they're looking for people to blame and they're pointing fingers and I have nothing to do with it, I'm staying pretty neutral, and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't do that, so I'm gonna let that go, and I'm gonna keep hearing them, and I might ask questions like, well, why do you think that happened, or why do you think I did this, right? I'm staying open, I'm listening, I'm not taking it on, I'm not soaking it in, and I'm not getting defensive and upset. When we have functional boundaries like that, where we're hearing, we're listening, and we're sharing, a lot less resentment comes up. We're not getting upset with the other people, right? We're present, and we're able to hear. When you have that ability, then you can set firm boundaries with other people. So for example, if we're going with the physical space, it's, hey, when you stand in my face, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. I'd appreciate it if you'd step, a couple feet back. If it's sexual boundaries, right? It's, hey, I don't like it when you do that. Can you please stop? Versus they keep doing the thing you don't like, and inside you're like seething, you're like, oh, get away from me, right? So being really clear with what your boundaries are. And then on the flip side of asking other people questions, hey, are you okay with this? Hey, can I hold your hand? Or whatever it might be. So it's that back and forth. You're clear with each other. It builds a more intimate relationship, and there's a lot less room for misinterpretations or assumptions being made, or just building of resentment, where then people get angry and upset. It's also a way to protect yourself. So if you set a firm boundary, and not everyone's functional, so if they keep crossing that boundary, you're going to have a better way of enforcing that boundary. So if my boundary with a partner is, I get really upset when you lie to me about things, and then I find out, my boundary is, I want you to stop lying to me. Now, I can't make that other person stop lying to me. So boundaries aren't about making other people do things. Boundaries are about what you're going to do in response to whatever it is, line or limit that you've set. So if someone keeps lying to me, my boundary that I'm going to enforce is, you keep lying to me, I'm going to have to remove myself, and I'm going to end this relationship, right? So the next time they lie, I have to follow through with that, because I set a limit. If I don't, people will keep crossing your boundaries all the time. So boundaries are really important to establish and then maintain and follow through with what you said, to hold other people accountable as well as yourself. If you have more questions about boundaries, I have lots of resources and books that I can send you. You can also do a quick Google search of how to maintain boundaries or establish boundaries, and the internet is limitless that you can find. Thank you.